From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me from New York, Andres. Andres, thank you very much for making the time to be with me on this episode today. The way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves and what they are doing. So the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Well, good morning or good afternoon from your end. I'm Andres Klaric here. I was born in the US, but I was raised my entire life in Bolivia. I come from a family that has been in the auto space forever, right? So my grandpa was a race car driver. My dad has worked in auto finance for a good chunk of his career. And my first job out of high school was selling cars. I paid for college selling cars. And then after college, I went into Wall Street. I worked at investment banks and then switched into the buy side, working in private equity and hedge funds. And along the way, I went to business school. I went to Harvard for that. I met my co-founder during grad school there. And a little bit over 2 years ago, we decided to join forces to build the first stage of what today is used. Originally, the business was a direct-to-consumer brand offering auto loans. So we were working with top 10 banks, top 10 credit unions, and finance companies here in the US. And those companies approached us at some point and they were like, guys, we love what you're doing in terms of originating loans for us. But we're frankly interested and perplexed by how good the technology that you guys have it has to be for you to originate loans at the speed and with precision that you're doing it. So out of curiosity, what type of technology are you using for your architecture? Because I imagine it has to be like a vendor, right? Because you've launched so fast. And our answer was no. Well, guess we actually had built that internally, to which they kind of pretty much in unitone told us, guys, we're actually far more interested in your technology than you guys just selling us loans because we have far more volume that we want to handle, and perhaps the solution you built internally is something that we can utilize for the broad lending operations of our organizations. So we switched from direct to consumer to B2B. And that's kind of how Fuse was born. We raised millions of dollars of capitals ever since that, working mostly in the US today, in North America as a whole. And that's kind of like the quick story on Fuse.
That's great, Andres, to know. And this show, although it's called the CTO Show, but we discuss a lot about, startups, entrepreneurs. So the question that I'm always curious to ask every single founder I interview is, what was the moment that you felt, okay, there's a need for this? So what was, the trigger for you and your co-founder to say, hey, there is a problem, it needs to have a solution. So if you can explain that to us.
Yeah. I think like first, there were two problems that we tried to solve, right? The original one was automating certain processes that take place during the lending origination, right? Like, so up until the point that in which we kind of erupted into the B2C space, there were a lot of pen and paper. There were a lot of like processes that require what it's called like wet signatures here in the US. And we were like, hey, like there's an opportunity for a lot of this very prone to error processes to actually be automated in the same way that has been done in the travel world, in the insurance world. Let's just tackle it within the confines of the lending world. Well, we didn't know that like what felt like a direct to consumer kind of speed bump was much larger when it came to like processes within the organization, a lending organization. So if anything, like what we are today, the loan origination system space that we entered, I don't think we would have ever found this niche had we not started direct to consumer, because it's kind of like hidden between the architecture of all the builds and the POSs and the point of sales and like all the other piece of software that you don't that you think about way before you think about loan origination system. That I'm very grateful that we actually walked into it, because I don't think, had we not gone the journey had we not taken the journey that we took, I don't think we would have been able to, um, or at least it would have not been as easy to find such an interesting niche. It's a massive market. It's like tens of billions of dollars that get spent on the piece of architecture that we built. It's just that you probably have never heard about it.
That's cool and great to know, Andres, about that. And I love innovation
Mm.
in general. And the fintech industry is quite an exciting one. And once we think we're done, there's nothing to innovate, and always, you find the ideas there. So, when I was preparing for the episode, so one of the things is that you had a role of low code platform. So, and building on APIs. How these technologies are evolving actually in the finance sector, like in the fintech,
Yeah.
and what do you think their impact might be on the traditional, banking systems as we know them?
Yeah. I mean, the war for talent is not going to stop, right? With the advent of AI and all of this, like the financial sector is going to continue to compete with Silicon Valley for talent. So that forces us to kind of like really make a choice, right? And a choice that doesn't really necessarily compromise, but a choice that like needs to be made as far as like, what do we do with all the non-technical talent that usually needs to wait for engineering teams to make changes, right? So we decided to like give them the tools to do a lot of the work that today needs to be left for engineering teams. And this is in general like more tactical work, right? The stuff that like I would say the average engineer would consider busy work, that like removes them from their strategic work, that like business teams sometimes need them immediately, right? That like it's it's a it's a quick hot fix perhaps from an engineering standpoint, but it's a distraction from like the more strategic thinking that they're doing. So like from a local no code standpoint, it's like, for example, workflows, really updating rate sheets. All of these things like really enable for the non-technical teams and the technical teams to coordinate better, or like if anything, not have to coordinate for certain tasks that I would consider more mundane, so to speak. Um, as far as like kind of inspiration that we draw on from other industries, right? As far as low code, no code usage, right? Like when you think about the UX that you see on an error table, right? Like, so you see all these interfaces and everything like that, and you're like, hey, there has to be an opportunity to bring some of this solution. So drag and drop that you see whenever you're adding documents into your email, things like that that exist already in many other applications, or like the speed of like ordering through a DoorDash or an Uber. Like, why can't we just bring that into like the B2B experience, right? So that is kind of where our insight was, noticing that there was a collection of experiences that like were already happening across other verticals, and we brought it into the financial industry. And that's something that like our user base also appreciates, right? Because they're familiar with utilizing this technology elsewhere. They just had never seen it in the context of fintech.
That's great. By the way, Andres, I'm fan of anything low code, no code automation. So when I see, a startup that has been built on top of that, I really like it because it's proved my point that, you can do a lot of things facilitating, the reach of technology. So it's kind of, the word is correct, maybe democratizing, the use of technology for even normal users. So you don't need to be a tech savvy, for example, to use the platform, which is amazing. Now, because the topic of loan applications, and this one I covered a couple of times, but from different perspective, and I want to hear your opinion about some other integrations. So, for example, uh, in one of my episodes, so we were discussing, this, integration. It was with Bruno. We were discussing about the blockchain with the loan applications. And for example, it was released. I know this is gonna be after 2 weeks, but today I released an episode about open banking. So how do you see, your solution integrating with other niche, or let's say edge technologies that are out in the market today?
I think as long as from a regulatory standpoint, our customers feel comfortable, we should be able to like provide them all those integrations, right? Like the way our product has like three verticals that are fundamental. First and foremost is like access to as many integrations as possible, or like self-serve tools that enable you to like build those APIs yourself and not to ever have to rely on my team of engineers, right? Like you are self-reliant because you have like the best tool in the market from an API connectivity standpoint. Second is the kind of the local no code tools that you mentioned, and the third is like workflows. So as you think about like blockchain and other point solutions, you think providing that connectivity and ease of integration for our customers is fundamental for us to like differentiate ourselves. Um, the use cases are plentiful, of course. Like blockchain, despite like all the noise, I think like finally like we're seeing like very good use cases in the marketplace. And what we want is our customers to have access to that, the ability to integrate those if they saw fit to actually bring them into the realm of their product.
That's 100%. I agree with you on this. One thing, also how because I always try to read between the lines, and I can see you are up to something much bigger. So how do you think Fuse would contribute to a more financial inclusion, especially because we know, and I'm based in Dubai. I
Mhm,
cover a lot about of the startup scenes in Middle East,
mhm,
Africa, region, and even some part of APAC. So how do you see like the contribution of Fuse in the inclusion of sometimes underbanked, so there are some people
mhm.
even they don't have bank accounts, and
Yeah.
even maybe some underserved markets?
Yeah, I see it in multiple ways, but like to just give you two specific examples, I always think that like bringing efficiency to the lending process allows you to two things, right? You can go the Milton Friedman approach that like it allows you to capture more profits and definitionally like you can give higher dividends to your shareholders, but at the same time, it allows you to grow more, and if you grow more, that also means that the marginal borrower is going to get a loan, right? Because even if by virtue of like being able to be more efficient, that means you have that extra dollar of money that you can reinvest into growing your loan portfolio, right? So that in itself, that marginal borrower getting that extra loan translates into like better that person that is able to buy a house, is able to buy a car to go to work, is able to like get a student loan to go to university, and like the wonderful multiplier effect that like credit gives to the market, right? So that from an access standpoint is huge. And second, if I had to think more macro speaking, and instead of like just the micro specific example, I think like that yet to this day, there's no like specific operating system of the banking world, right? Like the blockchain, where it's kind of when you think about moving money, but as far as like a platform in which like a lot of applications can be built, and like this fabric in which the orchestration layer in which everything happens is something that like I think long term it's a vision that like is pretty appetizing to us, and kind of enable financial institutions to kind of adopt new technology in a way that today they cannot do because they have multiple systems that do not intercommunicate with each other.
That's great to hear, actually, Andres, and knowing that you have this vision. Before I finish, from the finance perspective, and ask a couple of other questions. So, how do you see the future of digital lending evolving, and how do you see the role of Fuse playing in that future?
Yeah, I think that you alluded to another question, and I think I didn't touch much on it. It's like open banking is going to, of course, always depends on how rapid the adoption is by geography. But open banking will allow you to better underwrite customers, right? Like clear visibility, and as a customer yourself, to be able to like share with the lenders uh, information that today like it's hard to port over from one place to another, right? So that in itself is going to help to have much more curated set of kind of loan offers. I do think that there is a massive opportunity also in the recapture space. So, for example, people that are having a distributed kind of approach to their how they bank, meaning they have a auto loan with a captive auto lender, and they have a student loan uh, with a different organization. So being able to surround that customer with a plethora of different products and kind of get them to bank with you, it's something that it's pretty interesting in the long term. In as far as like created opportunity, I think there's going to be more opportunity to customization, of course, within the boundaries of regulation, but being able to like actually get multi offers, get to have shop around for credit in a way that doesn't affect your credit score within the context of the US. I think all of that is things that we're already seeing, but I think we're going to see it in a much in a much larger with much higher kind of impact, so to speak, in the coming years. I'm pretty excited about what the world of credit kind of has to bring, because it is kind of like leverage enables so many things, and being able to do it in a much more precise and without so sometimes of the issues of like over leveraging for bringing to the table.
That's great. Also, insights from you, Andres. I said that the final thing related to there, but there is no episode I record without asking about AI and the role of AI in the whole, the fintech industry in general, and maybe in the lending space which you are in. So, how do you think AI will also change the landscape there?
I think that there's especially there's the fear, of course, of mistakes, right? But like if you're choosing not to use AI, you're also like subject accepting to make other mistakes, right? So there's a trade-off that practitioners will have to make as kind of the technology gets even more precise than humans, right? So, but as it pertains to like specific applications that I see in the very short term or midterm, it's doc creation, right? Like for example, as it pertains to like commercial lending, it's very common to see in those categories memos being built in order for their investment committees to make a decision. So imagine a world in which a lot of those memos, if not all the memo, gets done by AI, right? Like you feed them information, the model is built by the AI tools. The model is then kind of reviewed by an analyst or junior person that kind of is in general in charge of those. And any changes to that model automatically get reflected on that memo, right? And that memo in itself can have flexibility and change the based on whatever commentaries are gathered during that investment committee session. The same applies for like document creation, document absorption, and that being reflected in the context of loan docs. That's kind of like a preamble of many other things that we will see, right? Like that's not even getting into underwriting and other things that are obviously going to see the effect of AI over the next couple of years.
Yeah, great. And I think for you, because you're already leveraging, some of the other things that we just mentioned, the low code, no code,
Mm.
and automation. And I'm seeing across, and you're very, I would say, very right on this one. If you're not using AI to do this kind of manual thing that usually we
Mm.
used to do, so yeah, you would be losing customer experience. You would be losing on even on the overall product attractiveness. Now shifting gear a little bit about from the entrepreneurial perspective, Andres. So like you mentioned to me before about having your co-founders with you. How much is it important to have this, spirit of the team when, especially in the early days, and how do you combine, the skill sets and experience to complement each other's,
Mm.
uh, and especially how this helped you also when building Fuse.
Yeah. First and foremost, like the decision to have a co-founder is an important decision, right? Like it's you're going to split equity in most instances in very close to parity ways, depending on like how early each one enjoys the journey. But I think the entrepreneurial journey is pretty lonely, right? So having someone along the ride in itself is a phenomenal kind of advantage. From my perspective, there's like the statistics out there too, and kind of like total returns for solo founders and non-solo founders. I imagine folks can actually Google that. But I would say for me, it was also a function of increasing the odds of success, right? And I'd rather be owner of a lower percentage of something that is worth a lot than something that I own 100% but it's worth zero, right? So it's all about increasing auto success. And I think co-founding this with Mark, my co-founder, was an excellent choice. As it comes to like specific complementary skills, I think it's very important. Otherwise, the ability to kind of create the equity value for the business, it could actually be hampered, right? Because if you two are identical people, like you're both going to want to do the same thing, and the division of labor is going to be hard, right? So if uh, given the fact that we have distinct level of skills, we can cast a wider net and definitionally do more things, right? And do things that like we both enjoy doing and that we have complete ownership over and responsibility and accountability over. So I do think that to the extent possible, it's very important that like those Venn diagrams don't overly overlap. There's certain values and things that like they need to overlap on. But as it comes to talent, I think that it's better if like each one can cover other things. I mean, if you were building sending a distinct type of business, I don't know if you're both building a private equity franchise or credit franchise or things like that. I think it's good to you could actually have repeatable talents because you need kind of like that yin to that yang. But I think we're trying to build technology. It's important to have a wide ranging set of capabilities to be able to like contribute to the value of the business.
Yeah, that's great insight. Another thing which also you touched on, when you did your introduction, pivoting. Like you decided to go from D2C to B2B. Now, and sometimes founders they face this reality that, or maybe it's not like reality, multiple situations where you need to change the strategy, you need to change even the target audience, and so on. So how much challenging it was for you to take this decision, and can you elaborate why sometimes you need to take these hard decisions, if they are hard actually,
Mm.
uh, for the benefit of the company and to be successful?
Yeah, I think like the last question is it's a relatively easy answer, and it's like we get paid to make thoughtful decisions, right? So a pivot it's not different in the great scheme of things, right? Like people and investors and the folks that have backed us have chosen us, and also our customers because they trust our ability to make choices, right? So the decision to pivot is not different from that. I think that as it comes to actually making that the decision, you need to. It's not something that is light, right? You need to first gain conviction that whatever you were doing before, uh, it's not necessarily as far as like from a utilitarian curve. If you want to just see it through the lens of that, it's not going to be like the best outcome for the business. Even if it's a good outcome, I and adjust it for the risk to pivot. For us, like pivot in this direction, was the best outcome we could pursue. Of course, we needed to sign contracts. So we signed multiple contracts before we decided to pivot. Of course, we needed to understand that the new market that we were going to was a market in which we were going to win and have a good chance of being much larger than whatever business we were building before. We had to rebuild the team, right? Or like at least rewire a lot of roles in such a way that from a talent standpoint, we were not going to be at a disadvantage. So every single vertical of the business needed to be reevaluated from the perspective of what is going to actually make it into the other version of the business. And that decision making takes time, and it's not something that you just like shoot from the hip type of thing, right? So you need to make all before the grand decision. You need to kind of do by business decision. You need to make small decisions along the way in order to kind of decide that yes, no, and then of course you need to convince all stakeholders, your co-founders. The co-founders need to agree. The the employees need to be aligned. Investors need to be aligned. You need to make sure that like no client is heavily affected by this type of change, and that whoever is going to be your core stakeholders in the next iteration of the business is super aligned with the change. So once all of those things are aligned, that I think you can confidently go make that recommendation to your board. And there's still the risk that they say no, but at least you kind of uh, show an entire process that has been thoughtful and it's been from the kind of uh, bottom up approach in order for you to make a confident decision from that perspective.
It's like absolute wisdom, I would say, Andres. And thank you for sharing your experience. One more thing, also, you mentioned to me, before that, you turned down an offer from Y Combinator, from YC, and
Uh-huh.
it's a bold move, because there are plenty of people, like, they, even here in Dubai, like, people come and ask, do you think we should go and apply, because they need this one in a time, one in a life chance to at least be accepted, and then this, the rest of the story. So, but what made you take this, bold decision? And how actually, when you reflect on it now, you see that
Mm.
it was the right decision, that it was aligning with your long-term vision and strategy for Fuse.
I would say in the context of that time, it was the right decision. I think that if I had the ability to see the future and see that we were going to pivot and go into a different direction, probably would have we will rethink that decision. But at that point, key things that we had already raised some venture money. So there's an allure associated with YC that means that you're going to be able to raise venture money if you're like a pre seed or like no unbacked company yet. So that component of getting capital was not necessarily like that kind of sweetener was not as sweet anymore, because it would actually mean that the YC valuation will be a big discount to what we already had. Second was that we were B2C, and although there's plenty of good examples of YC companies that are B2C focused, um, the benefit of the batch was different, right? And and third, that we actually spoke with a plethora of founders and also investors, and we were going to be able to make our mind in terms of like, hey, we have it, we want to focus on our energy and actually building the business. Let's go and build, right? I think, and just to be super transparent, like there's no real negotiation of terms of YC. I mean, we read through blogs and all of that, and we were hoping that there would be a possibility to like negotiate terms. I think that's very hard. I'm sure very few folks, the folks in general, it's just a recipe for failure if you want to negotiate terms. And we just thought, hey, like in this moment in time, with the information we have, the best path for us is not to take Y Combinator. Of course, we felt it's not an easy decision, but it was not something that we spent months on thinking, right? You have a few days, less than a week to decide. So you try to gather as much data and make a decision with the information, and the fact that you, going back to having a good co-founder, it's just the two of you have to agree, and then just move forward and go on with your life. Yeah, I would say if you're building B2B, if we were just Fuse instead of just like the B2C alternative, I think uh, the scoring of the decision would have been different.
Out of curiosity, Andres, you're a first-time founder, right?
Yeah.
you, I congratulate you on this courage, because in my day job, I would say, so part of is I do kind of mentoring, and like everyone is running after, yeah, we need the VC money now, and they still, as you said, in the pre-seed and seed.
Yeah.
And but you took a very different and actually right approach by building first, and then actually you are now VC backed, as I understood, right? So
Yes.
so you so you showed some traction, and then you brought the VC to the pictures, which is amazing. And one thing, and I liked it, and I love that you mentioned about this, is much of the first time founders, they don't realize it, about the equity, and how much control you are also giving. It's not only like you are taking the money, also you are giving control actually to the especially like some places like Y Combinator. Amazing. I really love to hear these stories, and I'm happy that you shared that with us today. As we are coming to an end, Andres, I want from you final thoughts, some advices to fellow entrepreneurs and to be founders in general. And if you want to touch on the fintech a little bit, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think for founders, it's there's a lot of common sense involved. But like sometimes there's just so much noise out there that like it you started like bending over backwards to, and I think like first principles are still remain as important. Work with people that you trust in the people that you work with, because it kind of like that. Uh, Same thing applies not only like for the people you hire, as the people you partner with, the people that you raise money from. It goes, that's common sense, right? Like it's stuff that you will learn from your parents. But I mean, life is complex, and sometimes we tend to overbuild on top of things, so that as it comes to ideas, don't get married to an idea, like nurture it, but like always have a competing kind of, even around the product, right? Like talk with customers as much as possible, get feedback, and be able to like really iterate quickly, right? Like especially at our stages when you're a startup, it is fundamental to recognize that your product needs to evolve based on the client needs, but at the same time also be careful of sometimes start of building too much for a specific client, right? Because that client might have a need that it's very niche, and just if you overbuild for them, like you lose the flexibility that was originally the reason why your product was winning, right? And in fintech, that's particularly true, right? Because a lot of folks in fintech, because technology in the segment that we operate in has not changed much in the last 20, 30 years. They are used to processes, and those processes in themselves have not been questioned for a while, right? Like what's efficient and what's better. So bringing a perspective, of course, listen to your customer, but like don't be scared to like say like, hey, I think I can add more value here, and like let me hear you out, and repeat back what you want. But how have you thought about this other solutions that we've implemented? We've seen this implemented in insurance or healthcare or direct to consumer. I think that's something your clients will appreciate. And yeah, I think that those are some of the thoughts that come immediately to my mind.
Great advice, especially the last one. It applies a lot. And I've seen startups that they did the mistake, on the promise that they are working, let's say, on a big contract. So they stop everything, they drop all the roadmap, they go focus on that one single feature that it's applicable maybe to one, maybe two, but maybe they have one in hand. And then they discover that, hey, because this is an advice from me, maybe this customer, even if you build that feature, he will not sign the contract with you. So you
Yeah.
have wasted your time, wasted your resources, and lost like bunch of other customers. Andres, I really enjoyed the conversation today. Where people can find more about you and about Fuse?
Uh, for Fuse, it's fusefinance.com. That's our website. And as it comes to me, like LinkedIn, my name is Andres, last name Klaric. Please feel free to like add me on LinkedIn, and like I usually try to make time within a week or two to speak with anyone that reaches out.
Sure, great. Thank you very much. I will make sure that the links are in the show notes. And again, Andres, thank you very much for sharing your experience first, and also enlighten us about what you are doing with Fuse. It's like a revolutionary technology. I can see that. I can see the future is brilliant for you. I wish you all the best with that. And again, thank you for giving us the time and sharing the knowledge. And this is how usually I end my episodes. So for the audience, if you are first time here, thank you for passing by. I hope that you like the content. And if so, please do subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the fans who are always, following us and, sending me the messages and feedbacks, thank you very much for this. I really appreciate that. Keep them coming. I read every single email, every single message you sent to me. And if you are interested to be also on the show, you have this brilliant idea, you want to share it. You're not having, the right PR, and, like you need a place to share what you are doing. Also reach out to me. The mission of this podcast is, to share knowledge, share the ideas, and enlighten everyone. So thank you very much for tuning in. We'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.